Now, for most people, Russborough House is associated with a string of major art heists which resulted in the loss and eventual recovery of fine art worth millions of euro.
But a recently uncovered stash of photographs spanning the 20th century provide an intimate look at the off-duty private lives of the rich, famous and powerful people who rubbed shoulders with former owner Sir Alfred Byte. Here to tell us more is Russborough curator Eric Blatchford. Good morning to you, Eric.
Good morning.
These photos, 10,000 in all, were only discovered literally a couple of years ago in the basement.
Yeah,
dark and dingy basement.
Yes, it was very damp and dark and dingy basement, and I joined Russborough a few years ago, and one of the first tasks that I took upon myself was to look in the basement, and in amongst all the wet and damp carpets and old furniture, we found 10,000 2D photographs. We found 5,000 3D photographs, which go back nearly 100 years.
Wow.
And we also found quite a lot of film from the 1920s as well.
Unfortunately, some of it was.
Yes, inevitably, I suppose, it had been there for a number of decades, we think.
Yeah.
And so an amount of the film, which we took to the Irish Film Archive, and a number of the photographs were damaged beyond repair. But many survived, and we do have in this new exhibition, Sybil, that you mentioned, not only film from the 1920s, from Sir Alfred Byte's Around the World tour, but also many of the 2D and 3D photographs.
You also tell the story of the art heists that have taken place, 4 in total in Russborough House since 1974.
That's right.
The most unluckiest house for art theft.
I think it was. There was a major robbery in the mid-70s, 1974. The IRA were part of that, and then in 1986 the General was involved. But on both occasions, it's pleasing to report all of the paintings were recovered, and they are now in the National Gallery for people to look at to this day.
Back in 2001 and indeed 2002, when I was a news reporter,
yes,
I was down there covering a couple of paintings were stolen again.
Those were more minor robberies, but indeed, and those were also, I think, fortunately, they've been recovered and can still be shown and seen in the National Gallery. But the exhibition, as you say, takes some newspaper articles, it takes a number of clips from documentaries, and it shows that. So it's an interactive exhibition, and you can press buttons and listen to music, and you can see, in respect to the robberies, some of the newspaper articles, some of the documentaries about the art heists there over the years.
Well, Sir Alfred bought the house in 1952. Now, he travelled the world with his camera, and him and his camera went everywhere together, and there's some fascinating photographs from different parts of the world that we get to see. There's also a shot that nobody's able to get a picture of anymore from the top of a pyramid.
Yeah, this is an intriguing one, and I was in Egypt a few years ago, and you can't, one's not allowed to climb up on top of the pyramids. But here we have Sir Alfred in about 1925, I think this one is, on top of the pyramids, and then you see him in the Dead Sea and going down the Ganges to Varanasi. So there's some wonderful.
Some that you've brought in today, yes, of himself with a host of stars.
Yes.
He seemed to be rubbing shoulders with everybody. I mean, his grandfather, I think, his uncle was the second richest man in the world at one point.
Correct.
So he had a lot of friends.
His uncle, who was also called Alfred Byte, formed De Beers, the diamond company, in the 1880s. And when his uncle died in 1906, he was the second most wealthy man in the world, after Nelson Rockefeller, ahead of the Shah of Iran. And that wealth cascaded down, and he inherited it, and he invested in this art collection. But in his private life, he was a filmmaker and a photographer, and he had a very good photographer's eye, and this is what we've now uncovered in the last couple of years.
Well, let's go through some of the pictures,
yes,
that we have to start off with, and some of his famous friends. There we have, is it Coco Chanel?
That's Coco Chanel. He met Coco Chanel in France in the 1920s and the 1930s, and we have 2 or 3 of these images with her at ease, but in 3D as well. So if you go along to the exhibition, you'll be able to see Coco Chanel in 3D when you put on your 3D glasses, and it is a wonderful image, I must say.
Well, he was involved in politics himself, and there's a photograph here of former English Prime Minister Sir Anthony Eden.
That's correct.
Because he was a visitor to Russborough too.
He was, and